There it is.
Beautiful noise.
We're in fact back for another episode. I've got more functionality in my arm now.
It's great.
And I'm happy to see it.
Yeah, we're all happy to see it. He can put his headphones on this week.
I'm out of the sling. Things are looking good. I still can't move it all the way, but look, we're here to bring you another episode. And this week, you just heard the noise. Start off with Beyond Parody, but I'm gonna call it double trouble. It's Beyond Parody and an entry in our ad series.
Double feature? Or just double whammy?
It's a it's a double whammy.
It's a double whammy.
Okay. It's one thing that satisfies both categories.
Oh my goodness!
It is both Beyond Parody and it's an entry in our ad series. We mentioned it on Twitter, but this is an ad that I saw watching the Lions game last week.
Oh yeah, this is gas.
It is an absolute banger. I'm really glad I could find it on YouTube. It was pretty hard to find, but I was very happy seeing this ad. It is from Donald Trump's campaign committee, so it's from the man himself.
Yep.
You'll hear at the end of it that's approved by him, and it's I don't know if I can really introduce it any further. It's an absolute banger.
Yeah, there's nothing I could do to prepare you for this clip that wouldn't just give away the sauce.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let us all experience it together.
All right, let's take a listen.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
It's hard to believe, but it's true. Even the liberal media was shocked Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and illegal aliens.
Every transgender inmate would have access.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
That's a banger.
I was going to say, that is a certified fucking banger.
Yeah.
If I'm voting Trump in this next election, I love that ad.
Yes.
If I'm that is for me. That's crazy.
Oh my God.
It's
Kamala Harris is for they, them. Trump is for you. I'm afraid he cooked.
That's the essence of Beyond Parody right there.
Yeah, and it's funny because when Trump said Kamala Harris is giving illegal immigrants transgender operations in prison, when he said that on the debate stage, insane moment. I had no idea what he was referencing. Yeah, it's crazy they got the clip.
That's what I was going to say. That was my whole thoughts about this. I was like, damn, they actually have a soundbite. What is that soundbite even from?
Yeah, it's so I looked into it. It's from a 2019, I believe, ACLU questionnaire that she filled out during the Democratic primary for president in that year.
Yeah, so it was when every Democrat was pretending to be woke.
And they were pretending to be progressive. Right?
Okay.
Exactly. So it's obviously Kamala Harris during her time as VP has not authorized a single transgender surgery for an illegal immigrant in prison. I doubt that any headway has been made in that regard. And honestly, the more I think about it, it's like, yeah, it's healthcare for prisoners.
No, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would just be healthcare and whatnot. And also, it's crazy that in the ad, like, they're just doing the conservative thing where they had to Photoshop pictures of her and just trans people next to each other. Because I guess there aren't that many photos that they could have done. But they always pick, I don't exactly know how to articulate this, but they love to pick trans people that don't conform to, like, regular traditional beauty standards that they ascribe to, just to like kind of point them out as if they're freaks next to Kamala Harris. And it's really gross, but like, damn.
Yeah, they're going for the reactionary yuck, right?
Yes,
like that,
exactly.
That's all they're going for when they're appealing to like Republican voters or whatever. But I think it's interesting because first of all, like I said, it's just healthcare. Like it's really not that big of a deal. Second of all, you got to wonder how many people, if this policy was actually in place, would this really impact? How many illegal immigrants are actually in our prisons that don't just get deported back to wherever they came from? Yeah. And how many of them are transgender? And how many of them would even need gender-affirming care like surgeries? And that's got to affect like, what, 50 people nationwide?
Outside of illegal, like people who come over here like illegally, how many prisoners are trans and would need that?
Precisely, yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've talked about how, at least when it comes to, bathrooms and bathroom bills and whatnot, trans people are less likely to do something criminal in a bathroom than a regular person is. Yeah. So it's like, I don't even know if that, two people.
Yeah, he's really playing to the base with this one. I just thought it was hilarious. Seeing that during the Lions game?
Yeah.
That was sick as hell.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. Today marks 30 days until the election. The day that we're recording this, we are 30 days away from November 5th. It is coming up very quickly. So, of course, this week we got some election watch. In fact, before the election happens, I think we'll only have like 3 more election watch subjects or sections.
I think so, yeah.
Before the election happens, so we're really coming close.
Yeah, we
it's
are.
October.
And we'll be live in 30 days on election night, going through the results as they come in.
Yeah.
We're gonna be there for the late night vote dump that starts to tip Kamala Harris over the edge in key swing states.
And that's exciting.
Yes, it is.
We'll be there, especially because we're the ones who will have caused it.
Yep.
It's gonna be us.
Yeah, it's gonna be me when I finally when I pull up to the local polling stations in all across Michigan, really. Wayne County, Livingston County, Genesee County,
Oakland County,
and
especially.
I say, "Oh no, you forgot these ballots that were collected in these ballot drop boxes."
Yeah.
But they were the fake ones that I put up and took all of the Trump votes out of.
You can't blame me for that. Like, I got an election to win. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to win. Everybody does this. But election day only a month away. This week we'll be talking about that election. We will be talking about Hurricane Helene. That's how you say it, right? Helene.
I think so.
Is
Yeah.
the pronunciation. We'll be talking about that. The aftermath. Republican lies about it. And then, of course, as you've all been expecting, #1 geopolitical podcast. We'll be talking about Israel starting a war and the broader Middle East.
Yeah.
Last week we said we don't think Iran will really do much. They kind of just all talk. They were not all talk.
Yeah, they're really
they
not
bombed
all talk.
the Mossad headquarters, or tried to at the very least. So we'll be talking about that this week. But before we get into all of that, as always, I'll remind you all to go become a patron, support the show, get early access to all of our content, and stay tuned in to the Hiddo ecosphere.
You gotta stay tuned in. Big things coming.
Yeah, big things coming.
Big things coming.
We got a lot planned, especially with this being an election year. And, we love you infinitely if you become a patron.
Of course, and always.
Yeah. If you want to support the show, you can also leave a 5-star review on Apple. Let me see how many we have here today. I think just one.
It's just one.
I think it's just one. This one
Unfortunately.
is from Wisco Daddy. Republicans scared? ?
Oh.
They said, not my first 5-star review, and certainly not my last.
Oh.
These boys have the best takes and the best condemnations of political violence podcasting has ever seen. If you have time, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the possibility that Republicans didn't shut down the government because Dems are rightfully running on the fact that Republicans blocked the border bill. Did they not want to risk looking even worse for shutting down the government? Thanks, and keep up the good work.
I think that's definitely a part of it.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a part of it because, it's not too much of a stretch if they can stick them on the border bill that they will try and stick them on the government shutdown. So I could totally see that being a part of the political calculus.
Yeah, and my thought process before the government was funding was that Republicans aren't necessarily rational actors. You know what I mean? I think this reviewer is kind of on the right path here. I think Republicans recognize that if they do it, it will look bad for them, just as it looked bad back in it was this time last year, 2023, when Kevin McCarthy got kicked out and there was all that chaos in the House. People didn't really pay attention to it because people don't pay attention to congressional politics. But I think on the whole, it was a bad look for them in the party entirely. So I think they maybe recognize that if they don't fund the government, they'll be blamed for it.
Yeah.
Even though they would try to pin it on Joe Biden, maybe they made the calculation that people aren't going to buy the narrative this time around. But I guess, the prediction was wrong. Well, they ended up funding the government.
Exactly. It's like what we talked about last week, how there right now is the only time every 4 years where there's actually like a microscope on politics at the national level. I just don't think they wanted to risk it.
Yeah. And you know what? Fair enough. They funded the government. And as we'll talk about this week, they've got all kinds of lies to tell about funding that government.
Yes, they do.
In terms of FEMA.
Yes, they do.
And we will get there. But thank you for leaving a review. And I think with that, it's time to get into election watch.
It's absolutely time to get into election watch. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
These next couple weeks leading up to the general. You know,
it is. It's gonna be. I don't know what October surprises we can get because people say that the war in Lebanon is the October surprise, but that was an October guarantee. We knew that was coming. You know what I'm saying? That was not an October surprise. Government wasn't shut down, so that's not going to be government surprise. That's pushed until December or January. So who knows what could happen?
Dock worker strike is not an October
happening.
surprise. That's not happening till at least January?
Yeah,
or did
that
they
got
just
pushed
reach
to
a deal?
January too. Yeah. So I don't. Who knows what it could be? At this point, it could be anything.
It could genuinely be a surprise this time.
Yeah, so we're getting real close to Election Day, and I will remind you all, with being only 30 days out, less than 30 days if you're listening on Wednesday, make sure you check your registration, regardless of the state you're in.
Please.
Even if you're in a safe blue state like California or New York, make sure you're registered to vote, but especially if you're in Georgia, Texas, North Carolina, or really any swing state, because Republicans are pulling all kinds of shenanigans. If they have any power in your state, check your registration. Make sure you're registered.
Especially if you live in Pennsylvania and you're going to decide the election. Most definitely check your registration up until the day you vote and submit that ballot.
Yeah. And I would also try to convince you all to make sure you have a plan to vote. If it's in person on Election Day, You know your polling hours, fine. But if you need to vote early or if you need to vote absentee, every state does it differently. So make sure you know what you're doing. I just got my absentee ballot.
I think I just got mine in the mail too.
Yeah, I'm about to vote after we finish this pod, and I'll have it turned in by the end of the week next week. So I'm gonna have voted early. My vote's gonna be in long before the October surprise. So make sure you all know what you're gonna do. Vote early if you can. Vote absentee if you can, or vote in person if you absolutely have to, or if that's your preferred method of voting. But just make sure you do it,
please.
It's important,
Please.
and we're getting in
your
close
civic
here.
duty, if you will.
But as is our custom on this show, since it's election season, we will be taking a close look at the campaign trail and doing everything we can to ignore polling because it's from the devil.
Guys, I got to admit, I tried so hard to ignore polling this week, but I caught myself reading articles, once again, an article head. And within two scrolls of each other, I found just two absolute bangers. And the first one said, I think it was from the Independent. So it's I don't know why they're involved in our politics. Anyway, you know what I'm saying? But it was something along the lines of Trump's lead shrinking in Florida according to top Republican poll. No, the fuck it's not. No, the fuck it's not. 2 scrolls later, you know what I saw? Fucking Michigan, closer race than we think it's going to be. Michigan and Florida are not at the same fucking spots when it comes to who they're going to vote for in this election. That's it would be asinine to think that. Oh my God.
Yeah,
man.
part of the reason we really can't trust polling, and this was true in previous years, but I feel like the issue's gotten worse, is that every media outlet wants it to be a contentious race.
Yep.
I would be far more comfortable if Kamala Harris was polling 40 points ahead. You know what I'm saying? But then if that was the case, NBC, CNN, Fox, they wouldn't have anything to talk about. They wouldn't get the ratings that they're getting right now. So they benefit from there being a close race. So they're going to highlight all the polling that says it's, Florida's a toss-up. It's not.
Yeah,
it's
and
not.
Especially when we have polls specifically, like a Republican poll that's saying Florida's a toss-out, the function of that poll is to get people to go out and vote. It's not to actually give you a snapshot of what's going on in Florida politics, Florida Republican politics. It's to scare people into voting, so that Trump doesn't lose.
If it's from a partisan polling organization, they don't got to release all their polls.
Yep.
They'll only release the ones that they think will be advantageous in the public eye. Like if the Kamala Harris campaign got a poll out of Michigan that was like Trump +5, they wouldn't release it.
No,
because that'd look bad for them.
Yeah.
So these partisan groups release them according to what they think will help them. But groups like New York Times or Quinnipiac or whatever, they do like public polling,
and they
nonpartisan.
They don't even have to release their methodology.
Yeah,
and that's the most important part here. Is they could just be going around to the Never Trumpers in Florida and talking to them and talking to the most staunch Democrats.
But we're gonna try to avoid polling best we can for the next 4 weeks or so.
It's just notoriously unreliable, especially right now. I can't.
I think there's some utility in it. I think some modeling can be good, but I just it's a snapshot in time. You don't know how things are gonna change. And it's ultimately for the devil. Yeah,
100%. 30 days is still kind of a long time in politics. It shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah. So let's start off talking about the man himself, Donald Trump. He's had a couple of insane moments this past week and a half or so. And one moment that I want to highlight a little bit later on where he just it was from like 2 or 3 weeks ago. We missed it because September was a horrible month for Hito Media LLC. But he is going Hitler mode, I'll say it.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. He's saying things that you just shouldn't say.
Yeah, it's bad. So Trump was at a rally last Sunday, and he was talking about shoplifting, and he had the following to say. He said, quote, "They didn't want to go over the $950. They're standing with calculators, adding it up. These people are smart people. They're not so stupid, but they have to be taught. Now, if you have one really violent day, one rough hour, and I mean real rough, word will get out, and it will end immediately."
That's just insane. You can't get out there at your rallies when you're the former president of the United States running again to be the president again and say that, we need to have the purge. You need to be allowed to beat the shit out of people who are shoplifting.
Yeah, well, and I would even take it a step further. I think he's kind of just calling for a night of broken glass here.
Yeah.
And it's missing the sort of ethnic undertones that the night of broken glass had when it was being called for. But it's pretty obviously him saying, we need to do state violence and have our supporters do it. And I would wager to guess, even though he's not pointing out a specific ethnic minority, that the violence would be focused on black and brown people and those he can label as illegal immigrants, especially.
It always is. Whenever they talk about fucking organized retail theft and whatever it is, whenever they talk about it on Fox News, they show the videos. It's always a video of like a group of black people stealing like things out of the Nike store. It's never the kleptomaniac white women that are just stuffing makeup in their purse as they walk by at Target.
Yeah.
that's not the people that Trump is saying we should go beat the shit out of. It's the minorities.
Yeah, and on a historical note, the Night of Broken Glass was framed as this sort of like grassroots uprising against Jewish people. And it seems like that's kind of what Trump is trying to do here, right? But it was the Night of Broken Glass and this as well, very clearly a state-organized, state-sponsored act of violence against ethnic minorities with the sort of pretense being we need to protect our nation from crime and embarrassment. So not good.
Not good at all.
And even if you don't accept that framing, even if you think we're taking this a bit too far, you have to admit the rhetoric has deteriorated significantly. This is bad.
It's so bad. This shouldn't be something that people should seriously present. And I think people tried to defend him by like, oh, it's just a fucking joke, bro. Or it's not an actual policy position. It doesn't matter if it's a policy position. He is pushing these things forward in, at the very least, if I'm being the most charitable, a semi-serious manner at a rally for his most ardent supporters.
He's running for the goddamn president of the United States.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
And then people are cheering for that. That's not a world I want to live in.
Yeah. If a Democrat did this, I feel like Republicans rightfully would go crazy.
Yeah. They'd be blasted all over.
Because Trump says it and because he can say like, oh, it was just a joke. It's not a real policy position. We grade him on a curve and it's fine.
It's just like the same thing that happened with the sheriff, the Portage County sheriff that we talked about last week or the week before. I saw so many people in the comments of our clips talk about he's just joking. What, we can't just like joke anymore? Brother, that's not a fucking joke.
Yeah. So Trump here calling for Kristallnacht 2, or, maybe just The Purge if you want to, I don't know, be kinder, be a bit more charitable to Trump's position here. Now, this next story we missed from a couple of weeks back, as I said, because September was unfair and unkind to Hiddo. But a few weeks ago, Trump spoke at the Israeli-American Council, and he had some interesting things to say. Of course, he did his sort of not only defense of Israel, but he made the case that him as president was better for Israel and the region than Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have been. But then, his goal here very obviously was to court Jewish voters. He made that very clear. Say all you want about the nuances in terms of like, just because they're Jewish American doesn't mean they're sympathetic to Israel. Saying that Zionism, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, is a form of anti-Semitism, so on and so forth. Obviously, Trump doesn't care about any of those nuances. He instead groups Jewish voters into one big lump and judges them as one group. The action of one speaks for the action of everyone type shit.
So telling.
And you'll see what I mean. I'm going to play this clip. And I promise you, this is not out of context. I saw this on Twitter and thought, this has got to be out of context. So I went and found the context. Before this, he says, let me be clear. And then he says the following thing. So we're going to listen to this. I'll let you all judge for yourself what you think of Trump's statement here.
I wasn't treated properly by the voters who happen to be Jewish. I don't know. Do they know what the hell is happening? If I don't win this election, and the Jewish people would really have a lot to do with that if that happens, because at 40%, that means 60% of the people are voting for the enemy. Israel, in my opinion, will cease to exist within 2 years, and I believe I'm 100% right.
Bro's damn near, that's like damn near a threat.
Yes.
My God, brother.
He's setting Jewish voters up to take the blame if he loses in 2024.
Yeah.
He's saying they will have a lot to do with his loss, and it will be Jewish voters' fault as a whole.
A group
if he doesn't get elected and then Israel falls.
A group that's already historically scapegoated by his base. He's just making that just policy.
Yeah.
Damn near. What the hell, bro?
And I don't think that Trump is like ideologically anti-Semitic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people in the Republican Party are, especially like the quote unquote modern right wing of the Republican Party. And him using this kind of rhetoric only, I guess, emboldens the people who already believe this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that is the problem with Trump, is like he very much is just this sort of semi-charismatic businessman who does whatever he can to get applause. But in getting that applause, he platforms the worst people and the worst ideas. And this is another example of that. He's setting Jewish voters up to take the blame if he loses in 2024.
It's kind of like the whole...
It is anti-Semitism, even if not purposeful.
Back when Trump's rhetoric was a bit, honestly, so much more dialed down, still gross, but way less worse than it is right now. 2016, 2018, like his first term, the common argument was like, oh, you just don't like the mean tweets. And it's like, the mean tweets are fine when it's coming from some guy on Facebook. They're already gross, but they don't mean that much. That's just one bigot. But when Trump is the president of the United States, the leader of the party, the person who is setting the rhetoric up for the whole entire fucking party, who has millions of supporters, and he's getting out there and saying things like this, it emboldens the worst of the people that like him to actually act on those mean tweets and act on the ideology behind them.
Well, and that's exactly why after he said the whole eating cats and dogs thing in Springfield, Ohio, there were white supremacist groups on the ground in Springfield, Ohio.
Yeah, the Proud Boys showed up, didn't they?
Yeah, like his rhetoric directly mobilizes the worst elements of American politics.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you have a proto-fascist in charge of your party, in charge of the rhetoric, in charge of the messaging.
And not only were actual white supremacist groups showing up, people from all over the country were calling him bomb threats to Springfield schools.
Yes.
Like just because he said that up there, his rhetoric does actually mean something.
Yeah. Yeah, narratives matter. The stories we tell matter. If Trump would have got up there and completely denounced the rumor, which, this is a rational thing, so he wouldn't do it. But if he would have got up there on the debate stage, denounced the rumors, said it's not happening, his voters would have called off the attack. And J.D. Vance, importantly, would have fucking stopped. But they didn't, because he lied. And as we'll talk about when we get to FEMA, he's lying about that to blame immigrants as well. It mobilizes hatred against them. I mean, this is like basic political science.
Yeah.
I know we like to think that the sort of at least liberals and conservatives like to think that the sort of charismatic fascist that mobilizes the worst elements of society is a thing of the past, a relic of the 1940s. But very obviously, it can happen now, and it basically is happening now. And it's time we recognize the threat for what it is. Like, this is the same exact shit. Setting Jewish voters up to take the blame if he loses the 2024 election. Nothing good comes from that.
It's actually insane.
Yeah.
Like, his rhetoric just continues to deteriorate in ways that I would not have expected before.
Yeah. Now, and this is sort of connected to that, but there's a broader point I sort of want to make on Trump and the election as a whole. Donald Trump will try to steal the election again in 2024.
Yes.
And I think this move has already basically been telegraphed, right? The Republicans, state by state, have been trying to change election rules with some success in states like Georgia. They've changed election rules to make it easier for Trump to win or make it easier for them to accuse Democrats of voter fraud. And then J.D. Vance on the debate stage last week refused to say that Donald Trump lost in 2020.
Yep.
Donald Trump will try to steal this election again. And you can make the argument that the system held last time around. There's nuances there, of course, but you can make that argument. But my worry is that we have not done nearly enough to prepare for him trying to steal it again, and perhaps with more support behind him, given that the Republican Party has fully bought into this idea that Trump didn't lose last time. I don't know. It's a little worrisome, and I feel like liberals, I don't know if it's liberals, I don't know if it's leftists, I don't know, but I feel like people generally don't take this seriously enough.
I feel like the counter messaging has not been there around the idea that, like, yes, Trump did lose the election and Trump tried to steal the election afterwards. A lot of, like, the post-election talk surrounding Trump is mainly focused on the January 6th riot and did Trump incite it or did he not? And that's one thing, but that is not in voters' minds directly tied to the idea that Trump had people in place to systemically try and steal it. Yeah. He had people try and hold up, like boards of electors trying to hold things up. Shit happened in Wayne County. There was the shit that was going down in Georgia with the voting machines. There were just these lies and lies and lies. Fox News had to issue retractions because they were sued by Dominion because of the lies that Trump basically told them to tell. Yeah. That's much bigger than what actually happened on January 6th. Yes, that was kind of the, like, culmination of it in a way, but I think we need to tie those narratives a little bit better and get people more primed to laugh at Trump when he tries to make these claims.
In, like, May of 2020, Trump was saying that absentee voting is going to be fraudulent.
Yeah.
Like, he was setting this up for a long time. He's setting it up now. I mean, he just set up Jewish voters to potentially be blamed if he loses in 2024. He's very clearly he's going to try to claim that he wins the election regardless of the result, regardless of how well Kamala Harris does state by state. And I feel like part of it is the fault of liberals who still take conservatives seriously in a way. Like, Kamala Harris did a good job on the debate stage with Trump himself, but Tim Walz spent most of the VP debate treating J.D. Vance as if he's a serious political interlocutor.
Yeah.
When J.D. Vance does not believe in the project of democracy itself because he would not admit that Trump lost last time around.
And that was the most frustrating thing about the VP debate, is the idea that they're actually, like, this would have been a great debate had you had, like, oh God, I don't know, fucking John McCain in there instead of Tim Walz in 2008 or 2012, when you have people who actually kind of believe the things that they're saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
J.D. Vance just lied the whole time. J.D. Vance pretended he had positions that he doesn't hold, or he pretended to be much more moderate than he is when he goes on these speaking appearances on like a Republican channel or even an independent channel with less spotlight. He just pretended he was different. He ran on a whole different platform than what his campaign is actually running on that debate. And Tim Walz did not do a good enough job at actually going on the attack and sticking him to positions that he has put his name on.
Yeah, and it's like Democrats spend a lot of time talking about the threat of Donald Trump, and I think that's completely reasonable, but people have a hard time taking that narrative seriously if you don't stick other people that directly support him with it as well. Like J.D. Vance is his vice presidential candidate, and Tim Walz just treated him as like a normal politician, right? Like you said, like 2008 John McCain. It's like that. That's not who he is. He denied the election results, or he is currently denying the 2020 election results, and he said all kinds of insane things that Tim Walz didn't stick him on. I don't know how the rhetoric of Donald Trump is an inherent threat to democracy can match up with your treatment of people that directly support him if you're super nice to them. I don't get it.
And it's like it's such a simple like rhetorical shift that I think damn near all the Democrats need to do at this point, where it's like you can agree on what the issues are. The issues are pervasive and exist all throughout society. It is impossible to miss how, like 50% of Americans live damn near paycheck to paycheck. You can't miss that. You can't. It's okay to agree that this is an issue, but what's not okay is to say we agree on a lot when talking about solutions, because we do not fundamentally agree on what the solutions to these things would be. And even when the Republican pretends to be a more moderate on it, you still don't fucking agree, and you need to call them out on one, not being moderate, and two, being just bad.
Yeah.
And that's something Tim Walz just didn't do.
This is sort of tangential, but related to that. It's like when the moderators asked both of them, like, what do you think of paid paternity leave, like at the federal level? And Tim Walz was like, oh yeah, I'm all for it. I don't know how long it should be, but we did that in the state of Minnesota. Simple answer. And then J.D. Vance's answer was, well, what if the woman wants to go back to work?
Yeah.
It's like totally unserious.
What if the woman doesn't want to go back to it? Like, you should be able to get him on the idea that, like, one, you didn't answer the question, and two, maternity leave is not compulsory.
Yeah.
You don't have to take it when you get pregnant. You can go back to work if you want. You can get childcare if you want. It is expensive. And in fact, that is another major issue with this country, is so many women have to go back to work, even if maternity leave was offered, because they can't afford to not work.
And it's like connected to the broader narrative that J.D. Vance is fucking weird on women's issues. You know what I mean? Like connected, he can use the weird thing. Tim Walz is the guy who came up with the whole weird narrative, but connected to the fact that he has an insane view on women and he fundamentally wants to control them in their lives.
I mean,
like that's the kind of, and that's not even a lie.
When he was talking about fucking paid maternity leave, he ended up talking about business taxes and how we should cut them. That right there should have been an insane just red flag moment. But nobody wants to talk about that one, you know?
So that's this episode's review of the VP debate.
That just sucked. And we had talked about it when we were doing our debate live stream, like after the fact, about one, how that sucked. Again, it would have been a fine debate if these were both spirited, honest people. You know what I mean? But that's just not the case. And we had also talked about how maybe in the morning we would feel different, like we did with the Biden debate. Maybe we think about it a little more. No, honestly, the next day, I fucking forgot it happened.
Yeah. My only, like, I don't know, shift on it was just that maybe Tim Walz had an appeal with, like, the moderate voter that doesn't like, I don't know, such conflicting or I guess like argumentative debates, like the chaos that Trump brings. But it's like, I mean, you don't have to be as confrontational as Kamala Harris had to be with Trump to stick J.D. Vance on the fact that he's a fucking demon. You know what I mean? Like, you don't got to be yelling. You just got to say, J.D. Vance, you denied election results. You voted against the child tax credit you're currently campaigning on. And list everything weird that he's done.
And it's like, I have beef with how, like, median voter, extra derogatory, thinks about, like, debate and, like, who wins an argument. There is such a common sentiment throughout society that, like, oh, the person who loses their cool is the person who loses the argument. That is not the fucking case. That has never been the fucking case. It is about the quality of your ideas. And I say that to say that you can absolutely be combative in how you approach J.D. Vance and who he is and his ideals without giving away the aesthetics of being a calm, collected interlocutor in a debate. You can absolutely be more on the attack without, like, yelling, without cutting him off. When he's talking about abortion and whatever the fuck he said about abortion, Tim Walz can very calmly openly say, what about what you had to say about women who were raped and are now pregnant? What about how you called that baby just an inconvenience? And that's it, or God's something.
Yeah,
it's
like
an
a gift,
inconvenience,
but
overall it's still a gift.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's something that you can nail him on the debate stage in a combative way that doesn't come off across as maybe you're being woke scoldy or too combative or too quote unquote emotional.
Or just attack JD Vance through Donald Trump's positions and what he
Yes.
said. Like, all you got to do is you are on the ticket of the guy who's responsible for overturning Roe versus Wade. That's all it is.
Because ultimately,
We didn't even get that.
It doesn't matter what JD Vance has to say about these things.
Yeah.
What JD Vance has to say matters insofar as Tim Walz could have attacked him for it, and I think there were a lot of missed opportunities there. But ultimately, what really matters is that Trump is going to be the guy creating policy.
Yeah.
The VP is just a body that exists to break ties in the Senate and be there in case the top guy dies.
Yep.
That's it.
But if you want our, complete breakdown of the VP debate, you can go and watch it on our live stream VOD that is uploaded on YouTube already. It was uploaded as soon as the live ended, so that's available if you want to watch it.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty entertaining.
But for our last piece of election news this week, I think we should maybe talk about something a little more hopeful.
Okay.
Which I don't know if it's right to have hope or optimism here, but I think it's interesting nonetheless. We're gonna head over to the great state of Nebraska.
Oh, great state.
Where does this counts as like flyover territory at this point,
absolutely.
right? Nebraska.
I think so.
But we're gonna head over to Nebraska because maybe we in an election year, especially in like statewide races, we sort of forget about Nebraska, right?
I do.
Other than its weird way of counting electoral votes, Democrats, left-leaning people don't really think about Nebraska too much. But Nebraska has a Senate seat up for grabs this year. And again, although we wouldn't really think about it typically, there's no Democrat running in the race, which means we have a rare occasion where there's a viable independent candidate.
Oh.
So there's an independent running in Nebraska named Dan Osborne. And previously he was kind of just written off as someone who can't win because Nebraska's a red state. But lately, and this is where I'm touching into some demonic energy, he's been catching up in the polling numbers. And I bring this up because, again, no Democrat running in the Senate in Nebraska. In fact, the DSCC, which is the sort of Senate campaign arm of the Democratic Party, they're staying far away from this.
Good.
And Gary Peters runs that, actually. Shout out Gary, our senator from Michigan. He was asked about this, and he was like, no, we're staying far away from this. We're going to let Dan do his own thing. Because I think that's the right move.
Absolutely.
I think that's absolutely the right move. But Dan Osborne's been catching up to the Republican candidate, incumbent Deb Fischer. And I guess, I wanted to highlight this because we had a listener from Nebraska that brought this up, but also because he's had some good polls where he's like +3, +5
Oh,
ahead.
shit, really?
So unless they're insane, unless the polling is insane, the methodology sucks, it might be the case that he's got a shot to win. And it's important because the Senate map is fucking dog shit this year for Democrats.
Yeah.
And if he wins, it could be that he is like, the 50th vote. And if he caucuses with Democrats, that decides who has power in the Senate. So it's pretty important.
I'm pretty sure the margins on the Senate race are like also razor thin, and we might end up just losing it in general. That's actually insane. I do think it is funny to note that this is not a Green Party candidate.
No, completely independent.
Completely independent. There's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity there, but
the Senate map sucks because I think the most winnable races for Democrats this year are Montana with John Tester, and Texas with Colin Allred. Those are the most winnable. Everything else is just blood red states.
As soon as we get Beto O'Rourke out of there, maybe we can win Texas.
That's not counting seats we already have, right? Like Michigan has a Senate seat up for grabs this year where Alyssa Slotkin.
Yeah, 2 Republicans are running.
Alyssa Slotkin's hopefully going to win the race. But that's a seat we already have, right? So that's it's a plus nothing. It doesn't net us anything in the Senate. So the most winnable races that we have are, I guess we already have the Montana seat, but we got to keep it. So that's a tough race. And then Texas is the one where we can maybe pick it up.
And that would be taking out Ted Cruz, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, man, I fucking wish. That'd be so good. That'd be so good.
Yeah.
I haven't thought too much about Ted Cruz. I probably should have. He's been out of the national spotlight
for
like
for
the
him.
last year.
Good for him.
That's probably better for his race that he's been staying quiet. But, man, maybe we should deep dive into what he's been up to.
Yeah, so Texas, please kick Ted Cruz out.
Yeah, Texas. I know a plurality of our listeners are in Texas. Please send us crazy Ted Cruz ads. We would love to talk about them because I bet they're just fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Man, I do, just speaking on just the DSCC, just staying far and clear out of this race.
Smart.
This is a tried and true method. That's how Republicans won the mayor of New York City.
It's Exactly.
That is how they got Eric Adams in. So it works.
Yeah.
Tried and true.
Works until you get indicted federally for corruption charges. Free Eric Adams. But let's do some background on Dan Osborne. So again, independent Senate candidate in Nebraska. And this is just all from his website. He served in the Navy. He's now a mechanic, so he's got the kind of blue collar patriot vibes to him.
Perfect.
He actually led the Kellogg strike in 2021 in Omaha, Nebraska.
What a man.
He was or still is the union president for whatever organization. So that's pretty sick. That's pretty sick. And his platform includes a mix of sort of liberal and conservative positions. Given the state of our political climate right now, he's like, pro locking up the border and that's basically what every Democrat is too. But he's got some from that are good from a left-wing perspective, like funding public schools. There's a dedicated section for funding public schools on his webpage, which I thought was interesting. He wants to legalize weed. He's calling for more railroad regulation, which I don't know if that's especially a problem for Nebraska, but generally good.
Okay.
He wants at least 2 train engineers on trains at all times.
Oh, good. So that's
Instead of
not
one.
fucking overworked to all hell.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I don't think he's like a socialist in disguise or anything, but I think generally he's got some decent positions. I don't know if you'd caucus with Democrats or what, but would be better than the Republican, right?
He's got a caucus with Democrats. There's no fucking way. He's just pro-labor Democrat. Like the border thing, I don't think there's a single fucking Democrat running that is not running on locking up the border and putting immigrants in jail.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that's just where we're at.
So Dan Osborne, kind of cool. It's a long shot. Independents winning anywhere is a long shot. We've only got 2 in the Senate right now. One of them is Bernie Sanders, of course. But if Dan Osborne wins, it'd be a big deal, as I said, because it very much could be the case that control of the Senate comes down to 1 seat. And if this is the guy that wins in Nebraska and he caucuses with Democrats, that decides who controls the chamber. Because even if it's 50-50, Kamala Harris obviously needs to win for us to control the Senate with the 1 VP vote. But, all things being equal, if he wins and it's 50-50, then Democrats can get to pick the majority leader who decides what legislation is introduced to the chamber. So it's a big deal.
Without that, nothing's fucking happening.
Yeah, and they decide, who sits on what committees, which decides all kinds of different legislative outcomes. So it's a big deal, and we need it.
We absolutely, and especially like the House races also razor thin margins too. This is a tight election, folks.
It's a tight election,
no matter which way you spin it.
Which is why because it's a tight election, you will want to get the news when it happens, which is why you should become a patron at Patreon.
100%. You do not want to be 3 days behind.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Do you ever think, I want to buy my way into heaven?
Always.
I want to buy my way into the good graces of the people that I'm listening to in my ears right now.
That's right.
You can do that if you head over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. And not only will you be supporting the show, not only will you get early access to all of the content that we produce, but you'll also get an ad-free experience on the Patreon every Sunday, every time we release an episode.
You'll be able to pull up to the sermon on Sunday, on the Lord's Day, to hear the gospel as it's spoken.
Yeah, no more being late, no more interruptions mid-episode if you're listening to this ad right now.
Exactly.
It's on patreon.com/headintheofficepod. It's one of the best ways to support the show. It's one of the longest enduring ways to support the show.
Help buy a pass from all the sins you've committed. Start coming to church.
Yeah.
And we can get things going.
Yeah, that's only if you head over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. It's in the description. It's there for you. Moving on to a less fun story. Let's talk about Hurricane Helene and all of the aftermath with that, both literally in terms of the devastation, but also legislative and narrative impact.
Yeah,
the Republicans
the political impact, because that shit is crazy.
Yeah, so we haven't dedicated a section to this just yet because obviously late September is when the storm finally hit. And then after that, I think last week after we recorded is when destruction really got bad. So we're here talking about it now. I know some of our listeners live in places like North Carolina, Georgia, or other states that are affected. I hope you're safe. If you had to evacuate because the storm path came to where you were, I hope you're doing all right. If any of you want to donate to help, I have the Red Cross's the link in the description to donate to disaster relief. Red Cross is operating in the area right now, so that would be helpful if you want to do that. But really bad.
Very bad, yeah.
Yeah, really, really bad storm. So as I said, September 26th, the storm had made landfall in Florida, made its way through the southeast of the country. I think there's also another tropical storm on the way right now.
Yeah, I had heard about another hurricane that's set to hit Florida.
Yeah, I don't know if
Something
it's
like
the
that.
same like, I don't know,
System.
magnitude.
Yeah.
but still not looking good. NBC reports that 223 people have been confirmed dead in the aftermath of the storm. That's a number as of yesterday, October 5th. And hundreds others are missing as communication infrastructure has been wiped out in some places throughout these states. You can just look up the before and after pictures for yourself if you want from places like North Carolina. I mean, you have some towns that, you know, look fine in the before picture and then are completely submerged underwater where they shouldn't be, or houses are just completely gone, ripped to shreds.
Yeah.
It's really bad. And again, as I said, if you want to help, link is in the description to the Red Cross. But unfortunately, there are political implications here because it's a month from Election Day. And one of them that I think we need to talk about, and this is the sort of defining narrative for this entire event, I suppose, and it's Trump's allegations broadly that Biden and Harris have basically done nothing, and as we'll get to soon, that immigrants are basically taking up all of FEMA's funding, which is not true.
Insane narratives that got spun out of this.
Yes, so Trump has alleged that Biden and Harris have not been really doing anything to help the people that have survived and have been evacuated, but they've both been on the ground in Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, other affected states. It's also generally just funny to see Trump trying to accuse someone of inaction during a major storm, thinking of Hurricane Maria.
I was going to say,
Puerto Rico.
Wasn't there another hurricane? That's where we got the Florida cracker picture.
Well, Biden was in office then. But
yeah, exactly. Biden was there, though.
Yeah.
He was not enacting.
Yeah, exactly. Biden has also mobilized 1,000 active duty troops to help with the delivery of essential supplies. FEMA has also already spent more than $10 million in individual assistance to those in need, and that's just the first wave of aid. I saw some people were pointing out, maybe like the day after when FEMA started spending money, that people were only getting a max of $750 in assistance. I just want to clear the air on that. That is initial funding. Okay. Like you get an immediate injection of $750 right away. FEMA will continue to spend money in the area.
I see what you mean.
Yeah,
so you can get a recurring payment.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know if it's like a recurring direct deposit or anything, but people immediately get $750 as like immediate relief.
Yeah.
FEMA will end up spending billions in the area to fix everything.
It's probably like you get a $750 cash injection.
Yeah, exactly.
And then based on need and based on what's going on, they will reassess the individual cases or groups as a block and then send more money.
And I think Biden has already committed to covering costs for like rebuilding and searching for survivors and stuff for like the first 180 days.
Okay.
So the federal government's going to be doing their thing here, spending tax money to sort of help people where they can. Then, of course, state governments will come in and try to rebuild as well. So it's not like the federal government's doing nothing. Obviously, there's a response here. And the $750 number is just immediate injections into the area of the survivors that need it.
And this is just exactly what the federal government is supposed to be for, to come in when these big sweeping things happen that states would have a hard time dealing with on their own, to give these massive cash injections to the area, to help out, to do things like mobilizing troops, to coordinate aid, because that's another part of these things that I feel like goes a bit unsung is just the like Herculean effort that it takes to actually go and find the people that are missing, to clean up areas, to rebuild areas, and coordinate everything that needs to go on. Yeah,
no, it's a big task, and you can make the argument that the government doesn't do enough in disasters like this. I'd probably agree with you, depending on how you phrase it. The government doesn't do enough. We should do more for natural disasters, people that survive them. But that's not really the argument that Trump and Republicans are making. And you know, we can just get into it, right? Hurricane Helene has been devastating. It's going to take a long time to rebuild, and you'll never guess who the Republican Party is trying to pin the blame on, who they're scapegoating.
Please guess.
It's immigrants. Of course, it's immigrants. In response to the devastation of Hurricane Helene, Republican Representative Nancy Mace has introduced a bill in Congress that would, quote, pull all funding from the Shelter and Services Program of FEMA and rededicate it to disaster relief. Now, of course, I'm sure you can guess, the Shelter and Services Program, also known as SSP, provides services to migrants that were released by Homeland Security as they await an immigration decision. In other words, legal migrants who are going through the legal process to immigrate here. And however, and this is very crucial, FEMA's disaster relief fund was already running a $2 billion deficit before Hurricane Helene, which is far greater than the $650 million that was just dedicated to the migrant services program in the recent budget. And most importantly, and this is a thing I haven't even seen liberals repeat, FEMA is a $30 billion agency.
That's a lot of billions.
$30 billion agency. They were just approved by Congress to spend $650 million with an M for their migrant services program.
A fraction.
They are a $30 billion agency, and about 2/3 of that is the Natural Disaster Relief Fund. What are we talking about? Immigrants are not taking up too much money in FEMA's budget. FEMA has like $20 billion directed towards disaster relief. They still say this isn't enough. I believe them.
Yeah.
That they're running dry on funds. It's not the fault of immigrants. Using the funds directed towards migrants would not make up for the budget shortfalls.
Yeah, that $650 million is a drop in the bucket compared to like what just FEMA is as a whole and what needs to be spent in the area in general, right? And I would argue that ultimately the bigger issue, what is more draining on FEMA's funds, is fucking Rand Paul introducing a bill to just defund the agency every other fucking year.
Yes.
Yes. There are conservatives that get out there and actually like, I don't know, fucking stake their congressional careers on the idea that we need to fucking defund FEMA, states can handle it. Rand Paul being one of them, who then turn around and when a natural disaster hits their state, Kentucky, will beg for FEMA money. They should get that. The state should not be punished because they elected a shitty senator. But it's a reality that people just don't fucking pay attention to.
Yeah. No,
so
exactly.
many conservatives running with the idea that we need to fucking cut these programs and then say that Democrats aren't doing enough when these programs are underfunded and a disaster strikes under their administration.
Yes. And FEMA exists under DHS, Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security is also responsible for migrants that cross the border illegally.
Who'd have thought?
So obviously FEMA's going to be tied up in the same processes as the Department of Homeland Security as a whole. But it's important to note that the money that they spend on migrants who need services after they're, awaiting immigration court decisions, it's like 2 or 3% of the budget as a whole.
Damn.
It's 2 or 3%, not to mention that FEMA was asking for additional funding at this last round of budgeting, and they didn't get it. And that was before the hurricane hit.
And it's legal immigration.
Yes.
Legal immigration. Yeah. Oh, my God,
exactly.
man.
And I want to note that this narrative that immigrants are the reason that FEMA can't spend enough in states like North Carolina right now, that narrative is not something that like some random conspiracy theorist cooked up. That is from Donald Trump himself. Donald Trump decided that would be the message of the Republican Party. Now, state-by-state Republicans don't necessarily agree with him. I'm pretty sure that the governor of Georgia has said that the Biden administration has done a pretty good job. That's a Republican saying the Biden administration's done a pretty good job helping them out with the aftermath of this hurricane. But the narrative that immigrants are to blame for the lack of response by the federal government is directly from Donald Trump. It gets wrong that, first of all, the federal government has been responding, and second of all, that immigrants aren't eating up too much money in the budget of FEMA. It's ridiculous.
And it's also just the idea that, like, I feel like conservatives should expect, like the conservatives that believe these narratives are expecting like Biden and Kamala Harris to actually go to North Carolina and rebuild themselves. What more can they do as the heads of these agencies? They can direct FEMA. They can't give FEMA more money.
Well, yeah, and I think Kamala Harris and Biden were on the ground. First of all, it's Congress's job to fund
exactly.
FEMA. The president can't just say, here's more money. That's not how our government works. But I think Biden and Harris were on the ground in various states that were affected. But yeah, beyond that, if they stay there and try to help rebuild, they're getting in the way.
Exactly.
Because the Secret Service would just get in the way of people actually trying to rebuild and save others. And the president and vice president can't put themselves in harm's way because that's a national security risk.
And it is important that they show up, and they are showing up, and they are having their agencies do the thing that these agencies are there for. It is not their fault that the agencies are underfunded. I guarantee you, if in whatever bill that FEMA funding got cut in, if it had more FEMA funding, Biden wasn't going to veto it.
And it's like FEMA under Joe Biden, under the Department of Homeland Security, headed by someone appointed by Joe Biden, was asking for more money at this last round of budgeting because they said, we do not have enough to make it through the remainder of hurricane season. We can't do it. We need more funding. That is an administration, an agency under a Democratic administration. They asked Congress for it. Congress didn't give it to them.
Crazy. I wonder which members of Congress didn't give it to them. I wonder which party, as a majority, voted down funding FEMA more. Yeah.
Well, it didn't even make it into the budget. Didn't even get a vote.
Crazy.
It made it. FEMA got an extension of their regular funding. They needed more. They weren't getting enough. And the only people to vote against that budget was Republicans. In fact, Matt Gaetz, a congressman from Florida, the state where this hurricane touched down, voted against the budget that gave FEMA the funding they have right now that still isn't enough for the agency. It's absurd. It's absurd. Republicans refuse to fund FEMA appropriately, and then they blame it on Biden when FEMA can't do what they're supposed to do.
And this is a consistent trend when we look at damn near any fucking government program. A government program is ran with the bare bones that they have, the limited funds that they get. It runs probably a little shittily. There's a little bit of annoying bureaucracy in the way. Republicans say, look at this shitty institution headed by Democrats. Clearly they can't run it. Let's defund it. And it's this vicious cycle that just makes the program worse. Then they blame it on Democrats and they take more money away, when in reality, they just need the money.
Yeah.
They just need the money.
Yeah, it's the same with like Medicare, right? They try to defund it. Republicans try to take money away from Medicare basically every year. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and then Democrats get blamed for like the organization not doing enough.
And fucking Social Security.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about, oh my God, Social Security is going to go bankrupt, even though they don't understand what that means. The Social Security Trust will go bankrupt, and then benefits are reduced by like 15% or something like that. But they still continue.
Yeah.
They still fucking continue. Social Security would not go away if Social Security goes bankrupt. That's like a misnomer, or however you call it. But, I mean, even if it would, you know what the solution to that would be? You fucking fund Social Security, and an easy way to fund Social Security would be by getting rid of the income limit on Social Security tax.
Yeah, you stop being taxed for Social Security after $160,000.
Why?
It's nonsense.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah, you could impose like a 10% corporate tax and make up all the money you need.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't make sense.
The solution to these things most often is just more money.
Yeah. As you say, like Social Security is going to be insolvent, but it's still going to be able to pay out at like 80%.
Yeah,
and that's bad. I don't want benefits reduced.
Benefits are already too little.
Exactly, but easy solution here that Republicans are not in favor for. Another reason why it's so important that we win these congressional races.
And damn near another reason why it's so important that while we can both sides of the aisle can identify an issue, you need to highlight why you are both different when it comes to solutions.
Yes.
And why one side is so bad when it comes to the solution. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's not like a narrative uphill battle. You're going to have to battle the deficit hawk, tax and spend Democrat narratives. But you battle that by getting results. You battle that by funding Social Security, getting rid of the income cap, taxing corporations, a wealth tax or whatever that they want to do. Kamala Harris increasing taxes on people making, more than $400,000 a year like she's proposing. You do that, you give money to Social Security, people get more Social Security checks back. That's a result, baby.
Yeah. And unfortunately, in this political climate, that's only going to happen if Democrats win. Yeah. And maybe we pick up an independent seat in Nebraska.
If Democrats win and win bigly, unfortunately, which is a long shot.
And now, lastly, I suppose the final observation on Hurricane Helene, natural disasters in general, is that, of course, this is mostly due to climate change. As the Earth's temperature changes, or as, anthropogenic climate change continues to make things worse, alter weather patterns, natural disasters get more severe, more dangerous.
Yeah, and more common. These are no longer like once in a lifetime storms.
Yeah.
This shit happens like every other year.
So it's really bad. And of course it's the main enemy, I suppose, here, other than the Republican Party, is climate change, right? These things only get worse because of climate change. We have hurricanes every goddamn year that we talk about wiping out some town in the southeast of the U.S.
That's nuts.
And Republicans don't want to fund the agency that would maybe mitigate some of the damage done. Which is crazy, especially with the whole Rand Paul thing saying states can take care of themselves. Unless you're goddamn California, New York, or Texas, or Florida. No, you can't. You don't have the income base for that.
You don't have just the income base for that. And two, you already rely on the federal government to function.
Everything.
Most red states rely on the federal government. Don't they fucking take in more than they give out?
On the whole.
Yeah. So it's that's not how that would go, Rand Paul.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he knows that, but whatever.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that Marjorie Taylor Greene said that, yes, they have the power to change the weather. Because there's been crazy conspiracy theories that Democrats, or let's be real, they're talking about Jewish people, cooked up this weather pattern specifically to hit Republican counties so that they couldn't vote. Yeah, that's the conspiracy theory here. And Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't say that, but she said, yes, of course they can control the weather. They, in parentheses.
What the fuck is she on, bro? Oh my God.
Yeah, so
that's crazy.
State of politics is looking good.
Yeah, it is.
Looking real good.
Why can't she lose?
Yeah.
Why can't she lose?
Red
man?
Georgia.
God damn.
You know what one of my favorite activities is?
What?
Reading.
Oh, I love reading. I love literature.
And one of my favorite things to read are the reviews we get on Apple Podcasts.
Always.
Not only do I love to read them, but it's a really great way to support the show. If you want to help us out, go and leave a 5-star review on Apple. As always, we read them here on the show. And if you want to make me happy, if you want to become my non-parasocial friend,
That's right.
one step on the 1,000 steps that it takes to get there is to leave a 5-star review on Apple. We'd really appreciate it.
Just remember, my friendship, it's for sale. And
Precisely.
if you want to become one of my friends, you can go to the Patreon, or completely for free, you can leave a review on Apple. And even if you don't want to become my friend, don't you want to see another human smile?
Exactly. So consider leaving a review on Apple. It really helps out the show. It's a free way to do it. And you'll be one step closer to being a real friend of ours.
Exactly. Now, with that, back to the episode. So after all, we, of course, are the #1 geopolitical podcast.
It's true.
That's what we've staked our name and our brand on. It's what we do best.
It's who we are.
We got to get back to our roots here at the end of the episode today, like we usually do. And, you know, starting off, we got to start off with the event that fucking kicked off October. Iran, the first day, October just happened. Why am I already surprised? Iran launched 200 missiles at like air bases in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
They were all intercepted, I'm pretty sure. Nothing like crazy happened, but that was nuts, especially after we covered it. And Iran had came out with the statements that were like, we'll be waiting for the time to be right before we retaliate or something like that.
Yeah.
Usually when you say that, you don't do it like 2 days later, but I fucking guess, you know?
Yeah, and Iran has been sort of this entire conflict as Israel has escalated, has kind of just like done warning shots.
Yeah.
And not done much else. And I thought maybe that's what they would do here, but I suppose you poke the bear enough, the bear's going to react.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's not to say that, like, Iran has no agency here. I think escalation is bad regardless of who does it. But, of course, we fund Israel.
Yes.
Israel's using our bombs to hit targets in Lebanon and to kill civilians.
Yeah, this is just, once again, another wild escalation.
Yeah.
This is everything that reasonable actors were scared about after October 7th. This is the broader regional escalation that people
we've
have
been
been
talking
trying
about.
to stay away from.
Yeah.
Like,
Put me on the NatSec team.
that's what I'm saying. Principled actors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean and whatnot. But yeah, that's just wild escalation. However, nothing has come directly of that since then. But the idea that Israel is going to retaliate has underscored every single event that has happened this week. And the big thing that happened this week is Israel put boots on the fucking ground in Lebanon.
Yeah.
Launching quote unquote limited operations inside the country. And I want to focus on limited operations because I just need to remind you all that limited operations are what they said they were doing in Rafah. 44% of the buildings in Rafah have been damaged or destroyed. That's not quite a limited operation, you know what I mean? It's just kind of this term that I feel like they're throwing out there for plausible deniability.
Well, it's like when Russia said they're doing like a limited special operation or something like that in Ukraine. Like, no, they're going to war.
Yeah. I would argue limited operations are not boots on the ground and constant bombardment of the capital city.
Limited operation is hitting like 1 or 2 military sites.
Yes.
Like that's the limited
like
operation.
Just objective military sites. Like, don't even get me started, you know what I mean? But just with boots on the ground also has come the continued bombarding of Lebanon's capital, Beirut, with the heaviest bombardment happening literally last night, Saturday, the 5th of October. The Lebanese health ministry has said that over the course of the last month, 1,400 people have died as a result of Israel's strikes, with 7,500 people being injured.
Jeez.
That's insane.
That's October 7th.
That's in October 7th. Like, I cannot believe that all of those people are Hezbollah, especially when Beirut is an incredibly just densely packed city.
2.5 million people.
Nuts.
Yeah, and well, Lebanon, sovereign country. We recognize the sovereignty of Lebanon,
Yes, we
even if
do.
we don't recognize the sovereignty of Palestinians. And you can't make the accusation that the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry provides death numbers that are inaccurate has always been faulty, in our opinion, right? But that same allegation cannot be levied against Lebanon here.
Yep.
It's not the same thing. We can very easily verify the numbers that Lebanon proposes. I mean, we also could verify the ones that the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry
The
did.
UN has verified
But
those numbers.
Look, they can't make the same accusations. 1,400 people, like, I'm not going to believe even a majority of those are Hezbollah targets.
Exactly, especially when they are leveling apartment buildings. Literal apartment buildings and city blocks have been leveled in Beirut. I don't believe that Hezbollah owned the fucking apartment or the apartment was only renting to members of Hezbollah, especially when Israel's justification for this is saying that Hezbollah is, surprise, surprise, hiding military assets among civilians.
Yeah, and like, I'm sorry. What Israel's doing, we would not justify this in any other context.
No.
Like when might make some people angry, but when Iran launched missiles at Israel, we would not say them hitting the Mossad headquarters in the heart of Tel Aviv would be justified because civilians would be killed. We would say that is a terrorist act and they are morally wrong for it. Why is it okay if Israel does it, though?
Yeah, I don't think you should just be able to bomb things carte blanche. I think we have militaries with people in them, so we send people to do, like, military things. I've held this fucking belief for the last 3.5 years on the pod when the AP building in Gaza got leveled.
Yeah.
Israel just blew up the AP building because they said Hamas was doing something inside of it, and our fucking take was, instead of blowing it up and killing civilians, why don't they send fucking boots on the ground or something like that? Why don't they send people to go in and do these things? Much like what we did with the raid on bin Laden. Say what you will about that. Say what you will about the war. I was listening to the Majority Report like last week. I don't know if I mentioned it, but they were talking about this book that was written by some guy who I think had headed the CIA during the time when we were deliberating on how we were going to get Osama bin Laden at his compound. And he mentioned in the book, and Sam Cedar and the people on the Majority Report were talking about this, how they had considered sending stealth bombers and launching 2,000-pound bombs at the compound, but they said they couldn't justify it because it would necessarily kill too many civilians. They mentioned like a specific number of bombs that they wanted to drop on the compound to ensure that they got deep enough to guarantee that Osama bin Laden died, but they were not only worried about the women and children in the compound, but the people in the surrounding neighborhood. Because
very reasonable.
Because he, despite Osama bin Laden being a bad guy, he lived in a neighborhood with other people that may or may not have been bad people that didn't choose to live by Osama bin Laden. You know what I mean? So they decided they couldn't do that. They needed to send an actual team of people in to do a targeted strike on him. Very targeted, very limited. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Israel has dropped more bombs on apartment buildings than the U.S. government was considering dropping on Osama bin Laden, the damn near most wanted man on the fucking planet at the time.
Mr. 9/11.
Mr. 9/11, literally. It doesn't get more like crazy than that. And Israel is doing that to random military targets in Lebanon that they are saying are hiding up in apartment buildings. I cannot fathom a justification for that. I just can't.
Not to mention that now, just speaking of Gaza specifically, I think Israel, and this is something we talked about last week, Israel has dropped more bombs than I think were dropped on Dresden during World War II. Or maybe it's more buildings have been destroyed, more by percentage or something like that. But either way. Fucking nuts.
Absolutely nuts. Historic bombing. World War II historic for just needless civilian casualties.
Oh, yeah. Dresden was obliterated.
Yeah. Gaza has been obliterated. And now they're acting as if they want to obliterate Lebanon, or at least Beirut and the villages that are in between Beirut and Israel's northern border with Lebanon. Like, it's nuts. And it's like Israel, to give themselves sort of plausible deniability, has been saying that they've issued multiple evacuation orders by Israel to people who are living in the villages between Beirut and Israel's northern border. Specifically, the most recent order I saw came in like fucking 4 hours ago on CNN, and it was saying that anyone in villages within 18 miles of the Israel border needs to move 31 miles into the country to, quote, save their lives.
That's
brother.
Okay.
This is untenable. CNN also reports that some of these evacuation orders are coming only minutes before the strikes are carried out.
Yeah. Unless you're the goddamn
What are you, the
Flash.
fucking Flash?
Can't move 10 miles in a few minutes.
31.
Yeah.
31 miles
31,
inward. Or you fucking move into Beirut, also being bombed. I don't understand. I saw a tweet on a CNN article from someone working within Israel to tweet about these evacuation orders, because that's sufficient to get people out. You put it on X and people should automatically know that they're going to die,
of course,
in 30 minutes.
Yeah, no misinformation on that site.
And it had said something along the lines of bombing in the Beirut area. Brother,
giant city.
What the fuck do you mean the Beirut area? If somebody said bombing in the New York area,
yeah, what do you mean?
It's fundamentally absurd, right? And you're asking people to leave their homes and their whole lives behind to go, I don't know, somewhere else. Don't know if they can return because the bombardments have been going on consistently for a week.
Yeah. Yeah, not to mention, as we said last week, like just asking people to move when, they have homes, they have jobs, that maybe they can't just leave the city. Maybe they work paycheck to paycheck.
It's like even more so than we talk about how in Gaza, not everybody supports Hamas. Not everybody fucks with Hamas in Gaza, right? Even though in Gaza, Hamas is the government. In Lebanon, it's not that simple. In Lebanon, Hezbollah, sure, they are a political party. They have some power within the country. They're not the government. There's a lot of people in Lebanon They don't fuck with Hezbollah. They can't control maybe that a Hezbollah member lives in their same apartment complex. They can't control that maybe I'll even say maybe there's a legitimate military target. Maybe some dude is running communications from a laptop in an apartment. You can't control the 30 other fucking tenants that are living there, just living their day-to-day lives.
Exactly, yeah.
You can't blow that building up.
And again, I'll emphasize, like, if we talked about Israelis the way that Israel talks about people in Lebanon, well, they would look at us like we're insane, and justifiably so.
Yes.
Right? Like, if I said on this podcast that every single Israeli in the country supports Netanyahu, people would probably call me, first of all, insane, probably anti-Semitic, and those would both be justifiable.
And those would both,
But Israel can say shit like, oh, well, they all support Hezbollah, and it's perfectly fine. That's crazy. I gotta feel like you just don't care because it's a brown person and they're not allied with the U.S.
I think that is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how else you can justify these things, and especially when Netanyahu throughout this whole time, Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, like, they've all been just making crazy, just fast statements, right? Netanyahu went on a speech, I think, as like a prelude to the anniversary of the October 7th attack, talking about how we are now on a war on 7 fronts. Brother.
Sick.
Brother.
That'll go well.
What the fuck? What the fuck he's saying? We're on a war with Hamas in Gaza. We're on a war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, with the Houthis in Yemen, with groups in Syria, with Iran, and then like some other shit. Brother.
That's great, and
that's
we're funding
the region.
We're funding it. Yeah, that's the whole region. That's everybody.
That's the region. Yeah. If we're talking about regional escalation, when you are saying you are on a war on 7 fronts with literally everyone surrounding you, like that's it.
And it is crazy that like for us tomorrow is the year anniversary. It's been a year of all of this that we've been covering. That fucking sucks.
That does fucking suck.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how else to state it. And just speaking to how all of this is underscored by the idea that we're waiting on an Israel response to Iran's attack, Netanyahu, on the record, came out and said to CNN, nothing is off the table when it comes to responding to Iraq. Yoav Gallant, I think, I'm pretty sure it's Yoav Gallant, don't quote me on this, also made a statement saying, we are working closely with the United States to determine how we are going to respond to Iran. However, we're not listening to him. However, we still reserve the right to do whatever we want.
Dog, why are we not putting an embargo on this
That's
shit?
what I'm saying.
No more missiles.
They could go and they could fucking strike Iranian nuclear sites or whatnot. Like, this is bad.
Oh yeah, striking
man.
Iranian.
Like,
Yeah, that'd be really, really bad.
This is all really bad. Like, I don't know how we don't have, like, we're not pushing the levers of power here.
And look, just a reminder that Iran could have a nuke that they might fucking use. Yeah. Because we backed out of the JCPOA, a program that allowed us to monitor their development of nuclear power. And that was Donald Trump that did that, by the way.
With all this bombing that is going on in Lebanon, with all these evacuation orders being issued, the Lebanese health ministry is reporting that 1 million people have been displaced. That's a lot.
That's a kind of violence.
That is untenable.
Yeah.
That's what's happened in Gaza.
And I saw, I don't know if you have this in here, but I saw it's probably like a week ago or so, as soon as this shit started with Iran, like really kicked off, Netanyahu made this video in English. Okay. Talking to Iranians, basically saying like, oh, I want to save you from the Ayatollah and your tyrants. Brother. And it's like, okay, first of all, in English, that's for us. That's very obviously for us. Second of all, yeah, I'm going to liberate you by maybe killing you and your family.
Yeah,
come on
what the fuck does that mean?
It's like it's Hitler shit, right? Like I'm gonna liberate you from the Jewish scourge or whatever.
And it's also this idea that like they can't do anything to Iran without us. It's debatable whether or not the United States could even successfully win a war with Iran on their home turf. Like,
Israel's not gonna win even with our help. I don't think. Even if they do, it's gonna be a massacre of a lot of people.
Exactly, unless it's just like fucking bombing. Like I don't understand. I don't fucking understand. And I think what's going on in Lebanon right now, on top of just being bad, is exactly what happened in the early days post October 7th. Limited operations in the region. It's exactly what happened in October 7th, except it's in a sovereign nation. Like that's crazy what they're doing here. They're displacing literally hundreds of thousands of people, 1 million fucking people displaced. They've killed over 1,000 people, with thousands being injured so far. They are carpet bombing the capital city, telling people they need to evacuate. Like,
yeah, they have Iran, who is the regional power, launching missiles at them because of all the escalation. Like Iran doesn't launch all of these missiles towards Tel Aviv if Israel never escalates and starts killing people in Lebanon too. Yeah. It's even debatable if they would have launched because of the Gaza stuff. Like, for all intents and purposes, Gaza's a part of Israel. But now Israel's escalating it into a broader regional war. Of course, Iran was going to eventually respond, especially because a few months ago, Israel dropped bombs in Tehran.
And that's why, they literally went to Tehran and killed the fucking guy. And honestly, more on that a little bit later. But like, it's insane because even Iran is not launching attacks at Israel if Israel's not escalating in the ways that they have been, right? And this gets back to what we talked about last week, how the Hezbollah and even the Houthis maybe are not launching these attacks at Israel if they're not doing what they're doing in Gaza.
Yeah.
That's why we need a diplomatic solution so that we can find out.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, exactly. Like they're doing it under the pretense that they want to help Palestinians. That may or may not be true. I'm not going to take them at their word. You know what I mean? But you make it a lot easier to argue on behalf of Israel if you don't give them an excuse to do exactly what they're doing. You know what I mean?
If Hezbollah is just launching rockets at your territory when you're not otherwise doing anything insane, then sure, maybe do something.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. Yeah. And I'm not here to give any credit to Hezbollah or the Houthis or Iran or anybody. I strongly condemn. Strongly condemn
but
all those groups.
We're not funding them militarily. You know what I mean? Like we don't have any moral responsibility tied between the United States and the Houthis or Iran or whatever, but we are complicit in everything Israel does because we give them the weaponry to do it, which is why we are so critical of Israel, because from an American standpoint, we're allowing this to happen. We are endorsing it day by day. It's our fault.
Literally facilitating it to happen. There's the option for an arms embargo. We have just, but like what? The only thing we've done is delay weapon shipments?
Yeah, and if we were funding Hezbollah, I would be critical of that too. You know what I mean? That would be bad.
Absolutely critical of that. But
it's just the same standards are never applied to Israel because of various reasons. But it's ridiculous.
And it's like there is still just insane shit going on in Gaza. This week there were new updates. The IDF has completely encircled the largest refugee camp in northern Gaza, alleging that they need to do this to stop Hamas from like regrouping in the area. And they're telling people to evacuate, but some people don't want to evacuate because the safe zones aren't even safe. Yeah. As we've covered many times about strikes that have gone through in these designated humanitarian zones, so much so that CNN, the Communist News Network, reports, quote, people would rather die at home than be humiliated here and there.
You can't even blame them.
That's what I'm saying. It is so bad. The situation is so destitute over there that people, like, you've completely crushed the morale of everyone that's there. That is so disgusting and despicable and just like wrong, right?
Yeah.
And this kind of this kind of brings me. I'm going to pivot a little bit here because like war is bad.
War is bad. I don't like war.
I think reasonable actors can agree that war is bad, and when there is fire going on, you would like to cease it, right?
Of course.
And those two words come together to bring ceasefire efforts.
Yeah,
what's the deal with those?
Fantastic word.
We talked about those for a while. You know, Biden said that there were two deals that he was like, these are on the table. We're going to do these. And then, you know, what about the ceasefire efforts? What's happened with those?
What's going on?
What's going on? We haven't heard about those in a while. And, you know, there's an update this week. Nobody's going to be happy about it. Just letting you know right now. And specifically, there was a press conference with Matthew Miller, spokesperson for the State Department, where he had this to say about the ceasefire efforts. Why don't you roll the clip?
All right, let's go.
We've never wanted to see a diplomatic resolution with Hamas.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what about the ceasefire?
We wanted to see a ceasefire, but we have always been committed. We have always been committed to the destruction of Hamas. We did want to see a ceasefire, but we have always made clear that we wanted to see a different authority moving forward in governance of Gaza.
That was Matthew Miller, spokesperson for the State Department, coming on a press conference saying that the State Department, Biden, did not want to reach a diplomatic solution with Hamas. Say what you will about Hamas. I strongly condemn.
Oh, yeah.
They are the government in the area. They are the group that, you know, is firing back. They're the group you need to negotiate with, to do diplomacy with, to get a ceasefire. What is a ceasefire if not diplomacy?
Exactly. Yeah, we never wanted a diplomatic solution, but we wanted a ceasefire. Brother, that's a diplomatic solution.
Yeah.
Like he's doing the Israel thing where it's like, yeah, we want to we want to reach a ceasefire, but we can only do that if we completely destroy Hamas. It's like, okay, yeah, we're going to kill all of you, and then we'll have a ceasefire.
So it's also just an admission that these negotiations that were going on were shams.
Yeah.
That these fucking deals that were happening were shams. Later on, not in that clip, but later on in the press conference, Matthew Miller goes on to say something along the lines of, well, if Hamas would just come to the table and actually negotiate, maybe we could get something done. You killed the negotiator, and you just admitted on television, on a national stage, that we never wanted a diplomatic solution. Yeah. We always wanted to destroy Hamas.
Yeah.
If no group in this fucking negotiations wanted Hamas to live, What are they expecting them to do?
Yeah.
Come to the table and fucking shoot themselves?
Why would they ever, especially now after this clip has come out, why would Hamas ever want to release hostages now?
Yeah.
Like, you've just admitted that you don't want a diplomatic solution, that you want every member of Hamas to die, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So why would they negotiate with you?
The complete destruction of Hamas. So you want them to agree to a ceasefire deal and then fucking kill themselves?
Yeah.
Genuinely.
And it's like, yeah, I too want a different governing body in regions that will hopefully eventually be designated as Palestine. But that's not going to happen through killing, I don't know, what, like a percentage, 2% of their population at this point? That's crazy.
It's just fundamentally that clip, seeing it just blew my goddamn mind.
Yeah.
Because bro just, I guess, got angry and gave the game away.
Mm-hmm. If Matthew Miller has no haters, I'm dead.
I'm saying,
you know what I'm saying?
Matthew Miller, John Kirby, two guys right there, just enemies of the show.
And Anthony's fucking what's
Blinken.
His name? Blinken.
Yeah.
Blinken.
I can't.
Yeah,
you know what? No
bad.
matter who wins the election in November, I'll just be grateful that neither of them have a job.
Oh my God! If Kamala Harris fires all of them,
it's either going to be somebody worse or somebody better. Mm-hmm. But either way, they won't have a job anymore, and I'll be happy.
I never thought Anthony Blinken would be this much of a demon.
I'm saying
they're all terrible.
I'm saying, like, what were all these? It was like a light joke that Anthony Blinken wasn't doing his job when he was doing these ceasefire negotiations, right? And that was mostly from the idea that nothing was getting done. But if the underscoring idea behind every negotiation was we don't want to do diplomacy with Hamas, then he literally was not doing his job. He was just vacationing in Cairo.
Yeah, there was never
on my dollar.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, man!
Holy moly! Yeah, that's rough. That's real rough.
That is rough. And it's like, what way forward now? What way forward? Because Israel is doing this, because you didn't want to reach a diplomatic solution with Hamas. Regional war.
What are you supposed to do?
What are you supposed to do? You, the State Department, have to worry about Israel fucking poking the bear Iran way harder and actually starting something that could be very bad for the world.
And like, to what end? They better be getting bribed or something.
Oh my God!
Like, Anti-Blinken better have crazy Israeli bribes in his pockets. There got to be some justification for it.
Better be getting some Turkish delights.
It better not just be like ideological commitment. Otherwise, the American empire has truly fallen. At this point.
Ideology is worth all that. God damn.
Not even like Henry Kissinger, demon.
Yeah.
But if he was in charge right now, if he was head of the State Department, he'd be like, Israel, shut the fuck up.
He'd be putting a stop to it. Exactly. And 100%.
Henry Kissinger, again, demon, killed a bunch of Cambodians and people in Laos, like a bad guy.
Yeah.
But the U.S. empire would not get pushed around like this.
That's what I'm saying. What happened to our spine? What happened to our spine? We are the global hegemon. Maybe it's time we start using that.
Yeah, Israel's a goddamn proxy state. Anyway, you know what I mean?
It's the largest aircraft carrier in the region.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not supposed to happen like this. You're not supposed to let your proxy state start broader regional wars that you get dragged into.
Yeah.
It's silly.
Be so pissed if we get dragged into a war, bro. And it's on top of all the senseless, needless loss of life that's been going on in general.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
that clip just fundamentally shocked me to my core.
What waste of taxpayer money, waste of U.S. foreign policy power, and of course, most importantly, insane humanitarian impact.
Yes,
just thousands and millions of people dead.
Also, I think it's important to note, while all the literal carpet bombings of Lebanon are going on, last week we talked about how, because they had launched some strikes into Lebanon, but they weren't bombing Lebanon like they are now. We had talked about how the U.S. Embassy has not issued an evacuation order for U.S. citizens in Lebanon, meaning they will not pay for U.S. citizens to get out of there.
That's crazy.
But Israel can tell U.S. citizens to evacuate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was crazy that they were get commercial flights out.
Yeah,
brother. What? What do you mean? What do you mean get commercial flights out? Yes. At least pay for the commercial flights.
Yes.
Or I get it. Okay, maybe we don't want to land a major U.S. aircraft in the region because something bad could happen and could get shot down. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
At least pay for their exit.
Literally.
I don't know how expensive tickets were, but I can imagine that they were pretty expensive since the country was being bombed actively.
You're already asking people to just leave their homes, and maybe there's a possibility that they will never be able to come back to those homes.
Yeah.
There's a possibility that will just be leveled, and you're making them pay for it.
Commercial options, get a Delta flight.
What the fuck, man? You making them drop $500-$600?
Yeah. Get a Spirit flight out of there. That's so disrespectful.
That's insane. But I say that to say bombing has ramped up. Mm-hmm. And I think there is still no formal evacuation order for U.S. citizens that the government will pay for.
Yeah.
What the fuck are we doing, bro?
I wonder why Ron DeSantis isn't having flights go over there and pick up American civilians like he did with
Ukraine?
Ukraine. Yeah. Or no, Afghanistan. It was Afghanistan.
Yes. Yeah, that's the one.
Civilians out of Afghanistan. Maybe I wonder why he's not trying to save Lebanese Americans that are over there.
Damn.
Wonder why.
That's
yeah.
I forgot you did that.
Yeah. It's looking real bad in the Middle East. Again, the only reprieve is that your two favorite podcasters won't be drafted.
That's right.
I'm not going.
That's right. I will be here to yap about it. Mm-hmm. That's what's going on. But you know, that's what's happening there. And I guess we could talk about other things now, like Elon went to a Trump rally.
Yeah, there's some bonus news to end off the pod. Elon was on stage with Trump when Trump returned to Butler County, Pennsylvania. Made his triumphant return to where he got shot the first time.
Yep.
Shot at the first time. He only got shot once, of course. But Elon Musk was there. He said he's dark MAGA because he had a black hat that said "Make America Great Again." He jumped twice and looked like a fool both times doing it.
He gave a really just shitty speech.
Uncharismatic speech. Yeah. He's an uncharismatic guy, but
yeah.
That
was not great.
If Democrats had a fucking billionaire come on stage and advocate for them,
I'm pissed.
They would be called out of touch, but it's fine when Trump does it because it's Musk, and apparently he's a working class guy.
And he gave a speech to something about like free speech on X, but it's like I used to think Elon Musk was kind of like grifting a little bit when it came to the free speech thing, but I think his head has genuinely gotten so big that he genuinely believes he acts as the last bastion of free speech on the planet, and that he is actually ushering forth the only platform where you can say whatever you want, and that really just means the only platform where you can openly be a Nazi.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, no, Elon Musk is an absolute cornball, but he's fully in the Trump camp now. I mean, he was before. We would argue he's been for a long time on blatantly on the conservative side, but now he's admitted himself, been on stage with Donald Trump. And look, Trump said a while ago that if he asks Elon to bow, he would do it. He was right. Can't say the man was wrong.
That was back when Elon was pretending to be like an independent, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was before he posted that thing on Twitter that was like, the Democratic Party has actually gotten way too far left, but the Republicans, they're the real center party.
Him and Trump were having some beef for whatever reason. I don't remember exactly why. Maybe it's because Trump was staying on Truth Social and Elon was doing the whole Twitter thing back in 22. But they were having some beef, and Trump was like, Elon came to me, wanted subsidies from the federal government. He would have bowed if I asked him to. Trump was on the fucking money. When he's right, he's right. When he's right, he's right. You can't say he's not right.
You can't take that away from him. I'm pro-truth.
Yeah, precisely.
I'm Truth Social.
In the last bit of extra news, and I guess looking ahead, still seems like there's not going to be a second debate between Harris and Trump. Very upsetting.
People aren't even complaining about there not being a second debate either. That's how you know.
Yeah, we've sort of accepted that we've got the major election events out of the way, that being the first debate with Biden, of course, and then the debate with Harris, and then the VP debate. Seems like there's not going to be any more major, political moments for us all to tune into. Maybe an October surprise for some candidate, but who knows?
I really wish there was a second debate. If there was another debate in like 2 weeks, God, that would just be good, but it's not going to happen.
It seems like the next big moment will just be Election Day, which sucks. I wanted one more debate.
I wanted, another just sparring of intellectual might. I wanted to just interlocutors to come through and just fight out words.
Trump's afraid, and he doesn't want people to see him debate. He's a little scaredy cat.
He doesn't. Yeah, that's right. We need to get both of these. Candidates on Talk Tua.
Oh my
god! And then we can
town hall on Talk
to a town hall. Oh my god!
Anyways, I think that ends the episode for today. If you enjoyed the show, become a patron.
Please do.
Early access to all of our content, and I'll be personally grateful.
I will. That'd be pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, and postcards about to go out very soon.
Yes, they will.
Our deepest apologies that they're a little bit late this month. Broken arm. COVID.
We write them all out by hand.
Exactly. Yeah, we got a lot of people on the program now, but they will be coming in October before Election Day, and then the next one won't be till after election. After the election in December will be the next round. So
exactly. So guess what the design's going to be about for that one?
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows?
It could be anything. But this one is a banger. And if you're signed up for the program, if you're a patron and you're in the program, you'll be getting your postcard very soon, handwritten from us.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. And so I got to give a special thanks to Caden Kraut, Lord Tyler Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Dylan B., Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Toro Tari, Gavin Mayer Maldonado, Hunter W., Fergalaki, Max Vazquez, Jacob Rogers, Colin Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cutsford Yook, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird, Teddy Crawfish, and Bennett Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's Boyfriend, Ted Cruz's Boy Toy, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarleson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Science, Aaron and his Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Tailored for Content, Corey Chambers, Ellie N, Devin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, Emma the Dude Slayer, Veronica aka V, Raxon, Ash Smith, The Grotler, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Murder in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, In Hope of Giants, AK God, Aquana Don,
Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Steak Daddy, Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Kayla Lowe, Anna Valinic, KCC, Say Yes to Wes, August, Particular Pickman, Sir Capalot, Jeff Sines, Howard the Duck, Brennan is Egg, JR, Drew Batchilder, Froggy Gumdrop, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, Sasha, MJ is Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Wallace 3000, Jared Finch, Tactical Snowflake, Son of Ander, Vanilla Bryce, Chris T, Kishan Lala, Amanda R, Hanky Panky, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Ashley White, Lalo Valesco, Particulon, Memfrez, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Lauren, Uncrossmatic Boar, Sasquatch, Rhonda Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Kevin Kasaya, Schnoodle, Booty Snakes, Erica, Krusty Krab, Dewfairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, Azim Fida Hussein, Brooklyn G, Noverk the Dastardly, Goldthorn, Addie Book, Merlin, John from Houston, Moss, my mom, and my mom. Thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon. Couldn't do it without you.
Could not.
And if you want your name on this list, you know exactly where to go.
Yes, you do.
And I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Have a great week.